presenting. And we move on to the next challenge, which is our third challenge, the crop yield prediction. So the crop yield prediction contains satellite imagery, and the data is already pretty clean. And also, let's see how the teams are predicting the crop yield. Starting from indecisive tweaks, crop CNN.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, can
everybody see that?
Yes, you can start presenting now. Good luck.
Okay, hi. Yeah, this is the presentation about how during the AIHack we tried to use a convolutional neural network for corn yield prediction. A short overview of the problem. I think everybody is aware that the global population is currently increasing exponentially, and we have a predicted increase of 2 billion within the next 30 years. And the obvious question is, how do we ensure food supply for this many people? And the aim of this project is to kind of provide useful prediction, or try and if we can provide useful prediction tools for crop and resource optimization for the agriculture industry. So the data set constitutes satellite data, and both the EVI, which is the Enhanced Vegetation Index, which is the measure of plant coverage, and temperature for the state of Illinois over 20 years. And one of the first things we have to consider is that the data set is actually not aligned in time and space. So the EVI data and the temperature data are mismatched both in time and space. And there's only one label per county. So actually the density of input variables is much larger than the one for output variables. So the first thing we did to combat that is perform linear interpolation and then group by year and county to basically match with the yield data, which is our output labels. And we then had to, of course, filter for data availability and normalize our input and output data. The pre-processed data looks like this, where we basically have performed the interpolation. And now we still have the issue of having data at multiple locations and many moments in 1 year, and still only making predictions for one label, which is the crop yield per county for 1 year. And first approach was to perform upsampling and basically use multiple instance learning to map the local features to the partial yield at a specific location. This basically didn't work out. And the issue with that was, while we were able to instantiate the multiple instance learning model, the number of instances varies between county because they have different spatial extent and so a different number of location. So we would have had to use some sort of custom ragged tensor model, and that caused lots of technical issues. If there were more time, maybe we would have opted for combining multiple custom models. But basically, this left us with the following approach, where we basically took the average and standard deviation of the temperature and EVI over different locations in space within one county, and basically used those as input data for both the temperature and the EVI. And so that allowed us to basically align these time series data, which is still conserved, with the county and year that we have, and train a CNN on this kind of data. So the model we used here is a 1D convolutional layer as the input, also include dropout for regularization, and then 3 dense layers afterwards to try and make the single valued prediction. And the results we achieved with this were actually quite good. So if I can draw your attention on the center plot here, well, we do see that we still have quite sufficient overfitting. We also see that the validation set is trained much better than in the raw data. And on the right-hand side, we can see that due to regularization, the loss for the training set is actually higher. But looking on the left-hand side with the predictions and labels, we can see that they quite closely align for both the training and test data. And in the end, we achieved a mean absolute error of around 0.41 standard deviations of the original data set on our testing data set. So we had quite a significant improvement on the predictions. But there are also some issues that these plots highlighted. And the first one is, of course, overfitting. And I think that's due to the fact that we have a small set of fully defined input events. We have 1,300 total events, of which we grouped 1,000 into the training set and 300 into the test set. This is quite small, and to maybe improve the size, we could maybe incorporate data from neighboring US states in the future. We furthermore would like to compare CNN and LSTM performance for the first layer to see if there's any difference and if the LSTM potentially performs better. But in general, I think this model would provide quite a bit of advantage, especially for kind of prediction in which regions one should farm. We could combine these results with climate models to see where the most successful farming regions could be in the more general area. And that would hopefully allow us to improve kind of the crop yield without making many more modifications. And that was already it. Thank you for your attention.
Any questions?
Sorry, I just saw the repo is still private. I will change that right now. Sorry.
Oh, hello. Oh, sorry, Scott. Over to you.
Yeah, so it was difficult to understand more about the project because the repo wasn't there. So just background information on that. So in terms of next steps, how do you see this being taken forward then?
So basically, I think the goal in the end would be to so on one hand, we can use the data already available here to kind of see how the temperature and the enhanced vegetation index could allow for kind of more advanced selection of regions in which farming can be performed effectively. And on the other hand, I think it would be quite useful to perform the upsampling in the end, because I think that would encode a lot of useful information and could basically, without kind of the binding of counties, that's a bit of an artificial construct, allow us to make predictions more specifically for the individual yields in specific locations just based on satellite data.
Okay, yeah,
like
makes sense.
I can add something that's probably like kind of James giving some tools to the food industry to see how to optimize and better focus resources in certain areas where you can predict that the crop yield is going to be better.
Yeah, sorry, I think the repository should now be public as well.
Yeah, it's working now. Yeah, thanks.
Just very quickly, I'd like to say I really like the way you worked with the data. You put a lot of work into that data, filtering it, sorting it out, extracting the features you needed. I think that was a big part of this, but also your approach was very logical, very methodological, and I think that was a really nice presentation. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks. Sorry, I think we had an audience question. I'm not sure if we should answer that or not.
I guess we can, right?
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the idea with convoluting the times is that we don't really want to reduce the data too much. So I'm not sure if that fully transpired in the explanation, but basically we had data within a year for many times, many individual time steps, and we didn't really want to lose that kind of amount of data by just taking averages or something like that. And so the idea is to use these time series to kind of extract a single data point about how the whole year basically was as a farming season.
Yep, great, really great.
And
thank you so much. Next team we'll be presenting is Team G Valley, analysis on crop yield. G Valley.
Yes, could you give us permission for sharing the screen?
Yep, sure. Giving you the permission right now.
All right. Just a second.
tú dentro.
All right.
No has picado la cámara.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see your screen, and 5 minutes from now, good luck.
Okay, so today we are going to answer a question that many in the county of Illinois are wondering, which is if we will going to have enough popcorn for the next year or month. So this is we are Jivali, Jonathan, Eva, and Ali, and we are going to show you how we tackle this challenge. Unfortunately, Jonathan is not with us, but you will hear him during the presentation. So this is the table of contents. And now Jonathan will explain the data analysis.
First of all, to overcome the increasing tendency of the crop yield, as we can see on the picture of the left, we perform a normalization, resulting on the picture of the right. Moreover, to detect any outlier, we perform several box plots, as well as compare the time evolution of temperature and EVI of the different counties to detect several outliers. For instance, we can see them in the Hamilton mean EVI, which the tendency over the years is not the same for some of them. In addition, according to the literature, a temperature of 30 degrees can be damaging for the crop yield. Consequently, we perform a clustering analysis to detect which counties suffer extreme temperatures. With this, we observed that the crop yield was different for those counties suffering extreme temperatures than those that didn't. Therefore, we performed a t-test to statistically show that two populations of crop yields could be defined, and they were different. One for counties in the north that did not suffer extreme temperatures, and other ones in the south that did suffer extreme temperatures. Finally, to fill in the non-values of temperatures, we decided to use mean temperatures of neighboring counties.
Okay, so one of the proposals that we did was a time series modeling. So we've used the data from the ABI, the temperature, and the crop yield. And the idea is to take the data from 2001 until 2018, and applying a Sarimax, we can have two kinds of variables: the forecast variable, that would be the crop yield, and the exogenous variables, that in this case will be the ABI and the temperature. We will use the data between May and July, and with this idea, what we want to achieve is to have on that year, in July, we can know how will go the crop in September and October. So the goal is in 2019, once we know how the temperature and the EVI of that exactly year has gone, we can predict which will be the crop on the next months. We will predict a numerical value, but as we know that a numerical value won't be good enough, we will choose a confidence interval of 20% approximately based on the historical data. So the aim at the end would be not only to say if the crop yield of that year would be good, I mean a typical year yield, or atypical, as we can see some years before.
Okay, and now we are going to explain another method for predicting anomalies. So first of all, we have the two data sets. From these data sets, the temperature and the EVI, we filter them, and we exclude the outliers. And also we put the months from May to October. After that, we extract features, for example, the mean, the skewness, and others, based on the mean county temperature or the mean county EVI. The levels that we are going to use are going to be the Illinois yield dataset, and from which we will normalize, as Jonathan explained before. And once it's normalized, we binarize it based on the counties with extreme temperatures, which means that we are going to classify if the country with the binarization if the county was an extreme or not extreme value. So after that, we are going to apply a dimensionality reduction with the features that we have, and we are going to use PCA and select k-best, and we unite them using the feature union, and finally we input this into a machine model, into different machine models like random forest, SVMs, or logistic regressions.
Okay, great presentation. Thank you so much. And judges, do you have any questions?
Hi there. It's a very impressive write-up and presentation slide deck. I just want to go back to the initial question in your presentation. So will we have enough popcorn for the year then?
This year, hopefully we can eat popcorns in all cinemas. So I think that we have from all what we have done, we just focused on the data analysis, and the models we didn't perform it at the end, but it should be well, due to the time, because we think that the data analysis should focus more on the data firstly, and once he fully understands the data, he apply all the models.
It has happened to us that we tried to apply a model, but then we realized that we had some problems before, so we came back, we performed data analysis, we realized that there were things that we didn't catch at the first insight, so that's why at the end we performed a linear regression because it was the most simple model that we could try. But we absolutely agree that more models should be tried based on what we have learned, but we didn't have more time.
Yes.
Yeah. Modeling data analysis, bouncing back and forth is part and parcels of the data set. So,
yeah, we believe that with this future selections and data analysis, we can have much better results. So for that reason, we focus more on this.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, I wanted to just say, number one, your write-up is excellent. Excellent use of both visualizations and evidence. Again, I love your sketch notes. Sketch notes ace in the GitHub repo. Really like the idea. Again, what were the key things that you think were very identifiable as patterns that could be replicated across other areas who were wishing to grow popcorn across the globe?
In other parts of America, for example, do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, as we have seen, what could be replicated would be, for example, the normalization, because it's something that it's happened globally. There's more crop yields, or it would be an increasing tendency. So first of all, you need to normalize it. Later on, probably the fact of having some non-values can be really common. So for that reason, doing an analysis and looking as we did, which are the counties nearby that have some common temperatures or weather, and that can be useful to fill those values. And well, basically probably all the data preparation, because we weren't specified in Illinois. The data that we performed was based on the papers, on what was recalled. For example, May to October was what was required or they asked for, and the temperature of above 13 degrees also. So basically that would be replicated. What probably wouldn't, well, the models should be like modified depending on the location, but the data preparation, that it's what we have focused on, should be replied, and well, it's how you get insight into that area.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for presenting. And then now for the last team presenting, do we have Import Torch as TF here?
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, can you share your screen?
I can share it now, and I just need to find the presentation and then we'll go.
Yeah, you have 5 minutes from now. Good luck.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Cool. So hi, we're in Port Torches TA. Illinois, and its 2 counties report a yield of maize. You can see the distribution here in
Hi, sorry.
and you can see
William, I think we are having difficulty hearing you
there are
because
massive.
it's cutting in and out. Is it happening for other people as well?
Okay.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, we can't hear him.
Well.
Yeah.
You can't hear me. Okay, that's a pain. Okay, you still can't hear me.
We can hear you now, William. We can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So maybe we just restart. If you guys have missed everything.
Yeah. Okay, start from now.
Okay, cool. Great. Timer. Cool. Hi, and we're here to talk about Illinois. This is Illinois. It's a state in the Midwest. Each year, each of the 100. You can see in 1913, you can see the distribution here in 2019. Obviously, there have been some changes. Now, if you look at the yield plotted as the average over all counties, you can see that largely it increases every year with sudden catastrophic downturns, and you may be interested in predicting those downturns. Now, if you look at the time-varying spatial fluctuations, you can see there is obviously strong spatial structure to where yield happens over time. So you may be interested in the latent space of these fluctuations. We can decompose the yield as a set of eigenvectors with associated time-varying eigenvalues to try and look at the key geographic factors which will influence underlying yield distributions. So we're effectively doing a PCA here with eigenstates, forgive me for the pun. Now, most of the eigenvector prefactors quickly become small, so pretty much a lot of variance can be explained by a single vector, and 4 or 5 vectors is sufficient to explain most of the variance. So let's look at the spatial structure of these yield fluctuations. There's a north-south divide. There's a kind of another north-south divide, slightly differently structured, and then there's an east-west divide, and then there's kind of a leading diagonal, but it becomes a bit noisy here. If you look at eigenvectors which are more higher order than this, then they start to become quite noisy. Now you can look at what the different time-varying values of the eigenvector prefactors and if you're curious, you can try and look at which ones correspond to massive downturns and see if there are eigenvectors which correspond to these crashes. Now, over time, the eigensystem remains relatively constant. So this is just a climactic thing. This is not related to innovations in technology at all. So we may want to be able to predict those. And one way we can do it is EVI, which is satellite data, which has been pre-processed to generate a spatial map of some predictor of biomass. Now we can look at the normal modes of the EVI for evaluated at different days each year. And if you look at the second eigenvectors, you can see there's quite strong correlation, just quantitative correlation to the primary eigenvector, which represents the underlying yield. So you may want to build a model. The model we're going to use is called a temporal fusion transform for intertemporal multi-horizon time series forecasting. We have historical yields we want to predict into the future. We have a set of time-varying factors like EVI, time, temperature, and the dollar damages by extreme weather events that we scraped, together with a set of static covariates like latitude, longitude, and county. Now, the underlying network is pretty complex, but in effect, it's an attention-based deep neural network for multi-horizon forecasting. One of the reasons we looked at it is because there is this gating factor which selects features that matter. Because you can select features that matter, this offers interpretability. At no point is the data reduced. We don't take a mean anywhere. We just let the neural network do all the work. We do a stratified test strain split at time 0. We're careful to avoid data leakage. We do a benchmark based on not including EVI. Mean absolute error is improved if we do include EVI. We can predict yield effectively in the future, somewhat, especially in places like Champagne and Bureau. Only 2019 is truly unseen. I'll get to that in questions. The fusion transformers are cool because they're transparent, so we can see the critical features for determining yield. They happen to be EVI 113, so day 113 in the year, that's in April, and day 257, which is in September. Now this kind of makes some sense because this correlates fairly well to the sides of when you plant corn. Now, historical yields and geography are the most important static factors for determining yield. Here we look at the static variable importance, that just as we saw in the eigenvector fluctuations, latitude and longitude are critical, as is interest in county. Now, we can also look at the attention of this transformer, like where is it looking to predict future yields? And we can see it's looking at last year. Now, the principal reason for this is the rather hysterical reason that the best prediction of this year's harvest is last year's. And that kind of dominates the attention of the transformer. Cool, thanks for listening. We're import torch Will. There's a bunch of data sources that we took. We tried a bunch of additional data sources, but we didn't find they offered a lot of help, especially the data relating to extreme weather events. That didn't improve performance at all. So thanks so much. Yeah, happy to take questions.
Hi, Will. Again, really impressive presentation. In terms of the data sets, did you look at the NASA data sets?
Sorry, what was the NASA one?
So NASA have a set of data sets based on the EWD data set already. So basically they've got some satellites looking back at Earth, doing visual imaging of pollution and weather, etc. So I was just wondering, did you look at any of their data sets?
No, I think we just focused on the county, the total amount of damage done in dollars by each county. It would have made a lot of sense to look at EWD from NASA, but we didn't.
Okay.
Just a quick question for me. Really interesting you used eigenstates, and I love the pun. Can you tell us a little bit more why you chose eigenstates? I mean, it's very, I've never heard of, I remember eigensystems back in university, that was a few years ago. But why did you choose that approach?
Yeah, sure. So most of the time when you look at data, there's less actual data than there appears. So I'll get back to right at the beginning. Let's go right back to when we can see. So you can see this on the right. And you can see that over time, there are these fluctuations, and you can see the fluctuations appear to be correlated. So it's like if you look at a beam, right? If you look at a fluctuating beam, you wouldn't want to describe each atom position. Instead, you find a few like a few variables, like the angle at a certain position or whatever, or the radius of curvature, that are able to explain the underlying observations. So if I think about this whole thing as 102 different counties, my head will explode. But if I start thinking about it as 4 different eigenvectors, then I start to understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's very nice. It's more classical, and I do like that. I think we're losing a lot of our insights into systems because we automatically just apply a neural network to the data and hope for the best. Here you're actually using something else behind that, which I think is really quite good. And thanks for showing this.
Can I just add to that very briefly as well? I think we really wanted to inform our model choice from a more classical approach as well. So we did all of this in chronology. This all came first, and our model kind of choice came following the kind of interpretation.
Yeah, that's a good approach. Very nice. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, William. Very good.
Any other questions?
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay.